Good morning, everybody. I am ready to get after my projects again. I am out here in the garage, and I'm just doing a little bit of prep work before breakfast, and then I'm going to come out and get busy. Let me show you kind of what I'm doing to set up. I picked up each of my wine glass holders. There's the side I finished. I flipped them over, and then I checked closely around all the edges to make sure there were no runs. I tried, you can see where if some of the poly was running yesterday, I kind of smoothed it out a little bit so that won't hurt anything. I've got them all flipped over. They all look good. I didn't have any issue with runs. So I'm getting ready to put the back coat on all of those here in a few minutes. The other thing I worked on is this is the frame that I shot a coat of poly on. I say shot, painted a coat. I didn't actually spray it on. I went ahead and used some 4/0 steel wool, and I steel wooled the whole frame. And then what I do is I pick it up, and that way all the steel wool shavings can fall to the ground. And I take another paintbrush, just an old cheapy paintbrush like this, and while it's standing on end, I dust it off to make sure that in any of these little crevices there are no remaining steel wool fragments. So I got it all dusted off, ready to go. It's ready for coat number 2, and I normally put 2 coats of polyurethane, and then I check it very closely, and if it doesn't look good, I'll go ahead and add a 3rd coat. But that's red oak with a nice stain, and it's taking it really well. The first coat looked really good, so I'd be surprised if that took a 3rd coat. Now the wine glass holders, once I get a 2nd coat, I'll be able to tell a little more because that was raw wood without any stain or anything on it, and it just drank the polyurethane. So they got really dull after they set, after it fully dried. And I have one more project I'm working on in here. Now the light is not on, so it may not be as easy to see, but there's not a whole lot to see, I guess. I brought out some of my wife's cake pans. Found some that fit each of the cutting boards. In a little bit, I've got these, they're fully sanded. They have been tack clothed off. And here's a new one that I haven't opened yet, but I just use a tack cloth to get all the dust off of them because I don't want that dust floating around and sticking to the cutting boards. I know it would wash off once you dried them off, but I just didn't want that. So got them all tack clothed off, and they're in these pans. What I'm going to do is pour a little bit of oil on them, wipe them so that you can see the reveal on the cutting boards, and then I'll go ahead and put a little bit in the pan. I'm not going to cover them. You don't need to do that. But if I put, an 1/8, 1/4 of an inch in the bottom of the pan, and every couple of hours or so, I'll just flip them over for the next, maybe say 2 days or so, they're going to drink up all of that butcher block mineral oil, and they're going to really get saturated with it, which is what you want. That way, as you use them, you can wash them, put them in the soapy water and wash them off. You don't let them soak in the water, but you can get them down by the sink and scrub them off, and they'll last a lot longer. So I'm going to be working on that, and then once I get them out of the pans, what we'll do is we'll spend a couple of days, we'll dry them off every couple of days until they stop seeping oil, because after they drink it all up, then they'll start to release it. And once they stop seeping oil, then they are ready for their new life. So I'm going to be working on this today. I'll keep you guys posted. I'm hoping to get these items done relatively quickly because I want to get to that pile of wood, and I want to start thinking seriously and cutting seriously for my cooler boxes. All right, I'm making some great progress. Let me show you where I'm at. My cutting boards soaking in oil. I think I already showed you these. The back side is done. I'm just waiting for that to dry. Got my 4th cutting board, and this is a cutting board that my wife's father made, and it just needed some TLC, so I've got it soaking down really good in some mineral oil. I got another really important project over here on the floor I've got to work on. I think I mentioned yesterday that my daughter and wife had gone out to get some supplies for a science project that she's working on, and got some blue spray paint and one of these tri-fold poster boards, and I'm going to get this spray painted blue, and once it dries, she can start putting her science project together. As soon as I'm done painting this, everything I need to do is done. I've pulled out my notes on the cooler boxes, and I'm going to get started. I think what I'm going to try to do is try to do a little bit of work to my table saw to sort of contain some of the dust, because it needs a little help because it gets dusty in there. But I'm going to see if I can come up with something quick just to kind of help curtail the dust. If I can even cut it in half, that's a huge improvement until I get the dust collection system in, and then I will do something more permanent. But I want to get started cutting my boards for these cooler boxes. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get busy, and I'll let you know how it pans out. Got the first coat of paint shot on her. I think it looks pretty good. She's going to like it. Well, I did a little bit of work to the saw. I wanted to do something fast, just to kind of prototype. So I used some 1/4-inch MDF, and I know that's not going to hold up long term, but over here I've got a 1/4-inch sheet of plexiglass. It's 4 foot by, it's 4 foot by 3 foot. That's more than enough material to do this if it works. So let me show you what I did to my saw. I closed in the entire bottom of the saw, and I just put a little duct tape to seal the gaps between the boards, and that's my old exhaust port. It used to come out the back of the saw, but it broke, so I cut it off, and I have built a little mount there for it to where I could just plug my hose to that and get suction at the bottom of the saw. So my hope is everything falls and gets sucked into that hole. The saw where the old port used to come through, I just used some duct tape and taped a piece of 1/4-inch MDF there. Like I said, this is simply to, if this works, I'll actually use the acrylic that I've got over there, the plexiglass, and I'll actually screw it to the case. And then on the side, there was one little spot here. It's a tool hanger that was a hole. And I just put some tape so that there's no dust coming through there. And then there was one little crack along the bottom of the saw, or it's not really a crack, it's just a gap, and I sealed that. So the only holes we have are right here where we set the saw, the miter angle on the saw to 45, or 90 to 0 to 45. Whew, lost my train of thought for a second. And then up top, we have a hole here. So my hope is with most of the stuff closed off, as the dust goes down, that port is actually about 1/8 of an inch below the level of the decking. So my hope is most of the dust will go down and filter into that port. Now I know there'll be some stuff getting caught in the corners, and what I probably will do is on the back of the saw where I had that piece of MDF just duct taped on there, I probably will screw a piece of the plexiglass where I can take it off like a little door, pull it off, then just stick the hose in there and catch the corners every now and then. I don't think it'll fill up that bad because with the suction on the bottom, everything that goes down is going to the dust in there is going to kind of float towards that port, I hope. I'm going to do a couple test cuts here in a minute, but my daughter came out and took a look at her backboard she had, and she asked me if I put one more coat on it just to kind of gloss it up a little bit. So I'm going to go do that right now, and it's time for steel wool and another coat of polyurethane on my wine glass hangers. So I'm going to do that first, then we're going to come back, do a couple of test cuts, just see if this works. If I can get through these cooler box projects with this, I know that this MDF is going to get damp and it's going to sag eventually, so it's not going to be worth a darn before long. But if I can get through this project and it works great, I'm going to take a little more time and do a much nicer job, and I'm going to do it right. And hopefully I can contain a good amount of the dust that's normally blowing out the back or the bottom of this saw. I'll keep you guys posted. Well, so far I'm really happy with what I did to the saw. I did a couple of test cuts. I grabbed some of the broken boards and just cleaned up the edges of them. And of course there's a little bit of, the blade will throw a little bit of stuff on top of the saw that it was larger chips that it couldn't pull down into the saw. And on the back, I found a little bit of a gap at the back of the saw cabinet where it met the frame that it sits on. So I put a piece of tape on there, and I'm not getting much dust at all. So I'm real happy about this. And I think all the really fine stuff is going to make it into the vacuum. So I'm ready now to get serious about cutting some cooler boxes. So let's see what happens. Well, I just realized it's been a while since I did an update. I've been busier than heck, which is good. I had somebody show up today, bring me a bunch of parts for my car that I purchased from them. And then at the same time, a buddy of mine from Turner's Club showed up, and I had some stuff for him and he had some stuff for me. So he hung out for a long time and we just shot the breeze. But let me show you kind of what's going on here. All these boards, I went ahead and jointed one side of them. And the reason why is that way it makes it a little easier to run through the fence. These boards here, this is enough to make the legs for 3 cooler boxes. I've got the larger side and the smaller side. I just need to put them together. Thought you might get a kick out of seeing this. Lots and lots of shavings on the floor from all the jointing of those boards. So I'm pretty happy. Like I said, I got enough to build 3 cooler boxes here. I'm going to go ahead and build 2 of them, and that'll let me get all of my measurements exact, and I'll have the parts for the 3rd one to do the video. And I'm not going to show all the cutting and all that stuff in the video. To shorten it, I'm going to eliminate all that and just start off with, hey, on the Google Drive, you can click on the link in the subject below, and there will be a cut list of exactly what you need. And if you buy this cooler, and then I'll make a disclaimer that says if you get a different size cooler, you'll need to watch your lengths and your width and your height, you know. But they'll get the idea of it, I think, from the video, I hope. So, wow, I'm getting ready to eat some dinner, and then I'm going to put the final coat on the bottom side of my wine glass holders and let them dry overnight. They'll be done. Right before I go in for the night, I'm going to flip the cutting boards, let them soak till tomorrow, and then we'll start draining them. Other than that, it took me a while to get the saw set up. All I have now is the dust that comes out of the top of the blade and gets on the top of the saw. Behind the saw, let me show you what it looks like. I cut all of these boards, and all I've got back there, dust-wise, is what you see on the rail and that little bit of dust on the floor. That is incredible. The fine dust, I can see it sucking back down into the slot, but I just have some dust on top of the saw. This is the stuff that kind of comes up with the blade and gets thrown on the saw. So there's a little bit of that, and then there's a little bit on the floor in front of me, but it's a lot less than it was. My buddy that was over has some materials that he's going to give me that will help me make this more permanent, because I think I'm going to make this more permanent and work hard to close up any other gaps I can. I don't know how to get the stuff on top of the saw, you know, that the blade throws out at me, without having some type of a contraption over the blade, and I really don't want to put a whole lot of stuff over the blade. You know, it just makes it tougher for me to work if I've got to work around all that stuff. So I don't exactly know what I'm going to do there, but wow, I've talked quite a bit. I'm going to let you guys go, and I'll come back with one more update at the end of the night and kind of let you know where things sit. I know this isn't going to be super easy to see because it's getting dark out here, but I put the final coat of poly on my wine glass holders. I want to show them to you. Really happy with how they turned out. Cannot wait to see one of them on display with a couple of glasses, and I was hanging on a wine bottle. I think they're going to look amazing. I didn't do any more cutting. I went in and had some dinner, and basically it's been a long day and I got tired. So I'm going to just basically pick up the things in the garage. I'm not going to sweep yet because those are tacky. I'm going to put the frame away. I'm going to put my daughter's science project sheet away, and I'm going to flip my cutting boards, and then I'm going to call it a night. I'll come back a little later, a couple of hours right before I go to bed, and just kind of sweep the floor out and pull the cars in, get all the dust up that way. But I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me today. It's been a great day. I got a lot done. I'm extremely happy. Would have liked to have gotten a little more done, but you know, it is what it is. Have a great evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.